Joining us now is our political panel, Kristen Hahn of Rock Solutions and Maura Gillespie, founder of Blue Stack Strategies. Maura, you're in New York this evening, but as we look even further north to New Hampshire, the new Suffolk University poll out today really got a lot of our attention because Trump's at 50, Nikki Haley's at 34. That's a 16-point gap. Is she really competitive in the Granite State?
So I saw that poll as well, but I've also seen others that have them tied. So, really what comes down to it is who shows up on Tuesday and what the mood is for an appetite for another 2020 rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, or are they looking for new leadership? We've talked about polls that came out, even a few months ago, where more than half of New Hampshire caucus or primary voters said they would choose anyone but Trump. So it'll be interesting to see who shows up for Nikki Haley on Tuesday, and where she lands at the end of this primary. I'm hopeful that she comes out on top, but it's going to be close.
Well, Democrats and independents, Kristen, could theoretically show up on Tuesday because of the rules of the primary in New Hampshire. How reliant is she on those crossover voters? And do you think they actually will, in fact, cross over?
I think some of them probably will. So I think she's overly reliant on them. And actually just looking past New Hampshire to South Carolina, I mean, Trump is the favorite in her home state, So I think we have to look a little bit beyond, New Hampshire into Super Tuesday and some of these other contests, because, I think she's got to expand her reach with these voters in her own party if she has any hope of coming out on top.
Well, Maura, she brings up South Carolina, and Bloomberg is reporting today that Ron DeSantis is shifting the majority of his staff to South Carolina. The day after the Iowa caucus, he was in South Carolina. Is that his last remaining hope if he wants the nomination?
I think so. It's also a net benefit for Nikki Haley for Ron DeSantis to stay in, because it does splice up a little bit more of the Trump vote. And so to that effort, yes, Ron DeSantis is putting whatever eggs he has left towards South Carolina. But I do think that it's starting to look pretty, for those of us who are not looking to have a Donald Trump as our candidate, it's starting to look a little bleak because of the fact that, again, he's got more and more people coming out in the GOP endorsing him, despite what they know. For a lot of them, they know better, but they're putting their support behind him. They're endorsing him. You saw Ted Cruz last night endorse Donald Trump. So unfortunately, it seems as though more people are going to just acquiesce and pretend like this is all okay and give in to Donald Trump as our candidate.
Well, you know who else endorsed Donald Trump actually on the day of the Iowa caucus? Vivek Ramaswamy, after he got fourth and dropped out. And I noticed a post on X this afternoon. He says, quote, "I'll give Ron DeSantis immense credit if he does the right thing and drops out before the New Hampshire primary. Most of his votes will go to Trump, and we can end this primary to make sure that Nikki and her neocon ilk never come anywhere near the White House. That's a key reason why I exited." Kristen, is he right? Maybe not necessarily about DeSantis dropping out, but that if DeSantis did, Nikki Haley essentially wouldn't stand a chance in New Hampshire.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I'm sure that I don't think we actually know. Like, these voters are very interesting. It's so hard to know what they're going to do in New Hampshire. So, I think Ron DeSantis, ditching out, yes, do those voters probably go to Donald Trump? Probably. But, I don't think that he's going to. So it might be a little bit of a moot point.
Well, Vivek's voters, at the very least, may well go to Trump. At least that seems to be the prevailing thinking. While Chris Christie's votes perhaps go to Nikki Haley. Maura, just to come back to you on DeSantis specifically, separately to the South Carolina news, Bloomberg reported today that Never Back Down, which of course is the major super PAC primarily that is backing him, is laying people off. Is he going to have the resources to get this thing to South Carolina, let alone Super Tuesday?
No, and I think that's been one of the big talking points surrounding his campaign is that they are running out of money. So that plays a big factor. And when you need a robust, again, I campaigned out in New Hampshire for Jeb Bush years ago. And, you got to get out there. And there are some parts of the state that, you really got to have a motivated crew and a motivated campaign staff who is willing to go out there in the elements and door knock and make phone calls. And so I can see that he's not able to do that the way he probably had hoped at this point. But just one more point about Vivek Ramaswamy. I think it's interesting that he would make that tweet and that comment, considering the fact that despite having done over or nearly 400 events in Iowa, he could have as well dropped out before the caucus took place if he really wanted to support Trump. So I think it's hysterical to me to watch him go and tout such things when he chose not to do that when he had the position to do so.
Yeah, he bragged about what he called a double Grassley, all 99 counties twice. But I want to talk about someone from a different state, not Iowa, but Georgia, because Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, spoke to Bloomberg in Davos earlier today about this race and what the messaging should be around it. Just take a listen to what he said.
We need to be forward thinking. We need to tell people, what we stand for, what we're going to do. We don't need to be looking in the rearview mirror and relitigating the 2020 election and really lay out for the American people what it is we're going to do for them to help fight through, 40-year high Joe Biden inflation, disaster at the border, the weakness that we're seeing in the world, and a lot of other things. And that's what I've been urging the candidates to do, and that would go for former President Trump as well.
More, are any of those candidates, President Trump included, actually doing that right now?
Nikki Haley is. Nikki Haley is explaining to voters, I think, every day why she's running for the president, why she wants this nomination. And to Brian Kemp's point, we're not hearing that from Donald Trump. We're not hearing that from Ron DeSantis as much, although more so than Donald Trump. Again, we saw it today, Donald Trump in court, unable to control himself from outbursts. He's viewing everything that he does as a campaign for himself. He is not out there talking about what he wants to do as president. We have no idea other than retaliate against those who went up against him and make sure his record is completely wiped clean. That's what we want for the future of our country. That's who we want in the White House as commander-in-chief. That should be terrifying to not only Republicans, Democrats, Independents. So it should hopefully encourage people to go out and vote.
From Dean Phillips is that there should be an alternative to President Biden, that there should be one allowed, that he shouldn't just be the presumptive Democratic nominee automatically. Is the Democratic Party, in your view, making a mistake by not allowing this to be a competitive process?
I don't know if it's a mistake. I don't know about that ad that you just played before we came on, but he had other ads.
I think that was Bigfoot, right?
I believe that was Bigfoot. So interesting to see him there. But the ads he'd done before, talking about passing the torch. I think that message is something that Democrats and Republicans alike need to really think about. And I applaud Dean Phillips for bringing it up because the democratic process, and especially New Hampshire, where requirements to run for president or to get on the ballot are more minimal than in other states. So he was able to. I think also Marianne Williamson is also up on the. She's up there as well, so you can vote for her in New Hampshire if you wanted to. So I think that what the point he was making, though, is that it's time to pass the torch. Again, Trump and Biden, whoever wins, if it is Trump, will be 80 years old in the White House or 80-year-old plus. And so his point was we need a new generation to come in and lead this country who is forward-looking, not backward-looking. And so I think he made a good point there. I think the DNC or the Democratic Party should embrace him. I know right now they're not feeling that love for him because he is running against Joe Biden for the nomination, and running is probably putting it kindly. But it's something they should look forward to moving beyond this moment and bring him more into the fold.